Happy holidays and almost New Year, Tippler Nation. This week, in the spirit of the upcoming holiday, I wanted to talk a little about the tradition of bubbly on New Year's Eve. But before I do that, let's get practical for the upcoming holiday and talk about how to choose the perfect glass and have the perfect sip for your party. I mean, who doesn't love the sound of that pop as the bubbly is opened? And while I know popping your champagne is usually frowned upon, it's virtually unheard of to not do it on New Year's Eve. But if you're saving a special bottle or splurging on the good stuff for the transition into 2018, then you want to make sure those bubbles are as happy as they can be. So, first things first, temperature. If it's a young or non-vintage bubbly, it's really best to serve ice cold. But if it's aged or vintage, it's actually best to serve it around 40 to 45 degrees instead of ice cold. So how do you manage that if you don't have a temperature-controlled wine fridge? I would suggest putting your room temperature bottle in the fridge only about 90 minutes before you want to pop the cork, and you'll get pretty close. So not before the party even starts, like most people do. All right, next, let's have a quick primer on the three most common champagne glasses: the coupe, the flute, and the tulip. So, the coupe. The coupe is a classic, a throwback, something that brings us all to visions of the Great Gatsby. And while I personally love this glass myself, if you're going to use it, I wouldn't serve particularly high quality champagne or bubbly, since it doesn't capture the aromas sufficiently and the bubbles dissipate too quickly. That being said, if you're someone who dislikes effervescence, like one of my aunts, this may actually be the perfect glass for you, since your champagne will flatten out rather quickly due to this surface area here. Since the shape is so festive and fun though, I don't know, maybe consider using this for your welcome cocktail earlier in the evening instead. Okay, on to the flute. The flute is the most widely used champagne glass, and I'm sure you all recognize it. This glass captures the bubbles wonderfully, and because of the ever so slight etching at the base, it allows the bubbles to release to the surface quickly, meaning more aroma and fizz for you, which is exactly what we're looking for with champagne. However, if you have an older, more complex champagne, you might want to take your glassware a step further and try a tulip glass. So this slight outward flare right here, it gives the flavors and aromas more room to develop while also dispersing the bubbles on your tongue a bit more effectively. So if you have a special bottle, I would probably use this glass over all others to maximize the appreciation and enjoyment of that bottle. So, survey says the tulip glass. It's really the best glassware for champagne or bubbly in my opinion. But a flute will certainly do in most instances. And a coupe can be incredibly fun for a theme party, but it won't showcase your bubbly in the best light. If you want to stock up on champagne glasses in time for your next party, head on over to our website to shop our favorites for all three of these types of glassware. All right, so now you know how to serve your bubbly, but why do we drink this festive wine on New Year's Eve in the first place? Let's have a quick little effervescent history lesson. All right. So, originally the start of the new year, using the pagan calendar, was actually the Vernal Equinox. That time of year when winter becomes spring. And back in the early Roman days, this timing made a lot of sense given the heavy kind of agrarian culture and how hard winters were to survive, quite honestly. Enter Julius Caesar, who decided to add 2 months to the then poorly defined calendar. Apparently back then you could do things like that. Just add a couple months to the calendar. So when he did, he introduced the month of January, named for the god Janus, who had 2 faces, which allowed him to look both forward and backwards. Apropos for the start of a new year, no? So Caesar insisted that Roman consuls began their term on this new first day of January, and thus the celebration of the start of a new year moved here. This new celebration spread across Europe and eventually to the Americas. It started to become common to stay awake until midnight, and back in the 1800s, one of the traditions was to roam from house to house at midnight to be invited in and served a drink. At this time, champagne was only one of many options, but as taverns and certain houses began serving kind of subpar punches and potentially dangerous concoctions, maybe a cost savings effort, a move to the more trusted bubbly in a bottle began to take hold. And also, so while the sound of firearms at midnight was also once commonplace, it slowly began to be augmented and then replaced with the sound of champagne corks popping. A much safer alternative, if you ask me. So in the late 1800s, champagne makers began actually marketing champagne as a drink for celebration specifically. And in 1937, a restaurant in New York City, Martin's, was the first on record to serve champagne only after 9 p.m. at New Year's Eve, cementing it as the drink of the fortunate and festive, which it most certainly is. So now, with all of this newfound information, go forth, Tippler Nation, and enjoy your New Year's Eve. May 2018 be your best year yet. Cheers. I'm back. As a quick reminder, the Crafty Cask is a scrappy little startup, but we have big ideas and plans to help all of you discover and drink amazing craft alcohol. So if you like what you see, please hit like and leave us some comments below. The more support we get, the more we'll be able to create even better content for all of you and bring our amazingly fun vision to life. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel here or our mailing list here. Thanks so much and happy craft drinking.